Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another beautiful episode of A Shot of Nostalgia right here down at the Turnbuckle Tavern. I'm good old Mike Belcaster, and always with me, my beautiful, beautiful co-host here.
I got the red jacket on today. It is a good day to be alive. Shot of Nostalgia, baby. What's going on, Mike Belcaster? It's the ace of the tavern, Stephen ACEFIELD. What's up?
That's what I like to hear. Nothing much, man. Here, excited about our 13th episode. As you guys know, we are diving all the way back to 1996 WCW Nitro Dead Air. Included pay-per-views, of course, and special events. You can't exclude the special events. Yeah, as I said, we're here for number 13, man. It is crazy that we're just floating along with these things. I'm fucking super pumped.
Yeah, man, we're 2 episodes away from doing that Bass at the Beach episode 15, which I think will be airing July 29th. So that's the episode we've been waiting for. We're going to have Matt from Extra Cooler joining us. Who knows who else is joining? I've been having a lot of feelers out for other people, but the more the merrier. I want to hear about it, whether you watched it for the first time yesterday or whether you watched it for the first time when you were 5 years old. I want to know exactly how you felt and how it transcends time, because it is a huge moment in wrestling history, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I mean, come on, who's not excited? I mean, if you haven't relived this and you're just joining along for the first time, or if this is like your 6th or 7th time down the aisle, I mean, this is always a good watch. I mean, I've seen some awesome matches that I've totally forgot have even taken place. We've seen Ric Flair and Randy Savage tear shit up several times. This has just been an adventure, and I love it, man.
And make sure you guys stick with us following Shot of Nostalgia. Directly following us live on the Turnbuckle Tavern will be Before Our Time, the first episode of Nick Storm and Young Anthony's new show. They will be reviewing all the WrestleManias in order. So they start WrestleMania 1, the one that started it all, the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania 1 from Madison Square Garden. I can't wait to see what the guys have up their sleeve. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for it. I can't wait until they catch up with their time. I wonder if they're going to keep going. It's a very good question. It would be awesome to hear their perspective from some of the first events that they remember. You know, it's a lot of good stuff going down. Can't wait to check that out. Make sure, as Ace said, stay tuned. It's going to be a good time. It's Nostalgia Fridays now at the
grab a snack,
Turnbuckle Tavern,
dude.
man.
Make that dent on your couch or wherever you're watching this, consuming this. Make sure you do what you need to do, but stay tuned for the next 4 hours. We have you guys covered with all your nostalgia fix to get your weekend started. But you know what, man, I think it's time to get right into happy hour, right? That's what else is there to do, man. I gotta wet my whistle. It's been a long week. I got my red jacket on. I want to take some drinks, man. Let's get into happy hour and talk about the news in wrestling in June 1996.
Poor Dusty every time. Just
every time.
Daddy. Oh, Daddy, don't break my leg.
And you know what? He sold it. The craziest part too, not that I want to go down that rabbit hole, but he sold that at his house. Like he wore a cast around the house. So if someone saw him in the grocery store, Cody didn't know he didn't break his leg. So like Dusty believed in kayfabe, man. He wanted to be real to him.
God bless him.
God bless Dusty Rhodes. And God bless Uncle Dave Meltzer, who has given us the roadmap into reliving history. So we will be reliving the 2 newsletters from June 10th and June 17th. So June 10th is the day that the Nitro we are going to be reviewing dropped, but also June 17th is the day after Great American Bash. So you have 2 events. And the first thing in the newsletter, of course, is talking about everything that went down with Scott Hall and the interpromotional war. So in the newsletter, striking back against the worked interpromotional angle started 1 week earlier by WCW on Nitro. Vince McMahon, a.k.a. Teflon Don, as we call him here on the Turnbuckle Tavern, what appeared to be a prepared lawyer statement said on June 3rd Raw show that Diesel and Razor Ramon were no longer part of the World Wrestling Federation, but they had intended to portray themselves as the stars they once were and were participating in a ruse that they're still part of the WWF. So essentially, and I'm going to read you a letter. I have some nice music queued up to read you the letter that they sent to Scott Hall. Originally, we talked about this like in theory. Now that you rewatched it live, you saw Kevin Nash appear on TV. Do you think that WWF had a case to make that they were character infringement, intellectual property, or was this just Vince kind of, pooping his diaper and sitting in it?
I think Vince was just being a salty little Sally. I mean, come on, Nash showed up with a hat on. It's not like you roll up in diesel gear with the semi truck. Then shit could have been rowdy. But I mean, come on, leave the man alone. Just quit picking on him.
So WWF also encouraged fans to call their 900 number or log on to the American Online for more details of the ruse perpetrated by Diesel and Razor Ramon. They were trying to capitalize on the momentum that WCW was having. So I referenced the letter, and I have the full letter in front of me. I think I want to read it because there's some good music to it. I have a prepared statement. So in addition to WWF released a letter sent directly to Scott Hall's home, which informed Hall they believed he was infringing on Titan's intellectual property rights by still portraying Razor Ramon in WCW, and that Titan would be withholding all future payments, aka future merchandise checks, and the May In Your House pay-per-view payoff, along with other monies not yet paid to him. They owe until Scott Hall and the matter is settled. So the letter's here. I'm going to put some music. I've never done the music here on the tavern, so I'm going to see if it works. I know they do it on the Raw Down, but we have a little acoustic music to go in the background of this thing. So can you hear that? I'm setting the mood.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to lower it down a little bit so you can hear what I'm saying. Dear Mr. Hall, this letter will serve to put you on notice of your deliberate infringement of Titan's intellectual property rights in connection with your appearance this past Monday on the WCW's Nitro show. Having reviewed the tape of your appearance, the text of the various statements made by you during your appearance, and the explicit references to past and ongoing storylines of Titan Sports, it is obvious that you were attempting by your appearance to suggest to the consuming public that you and the others from the WWF were now going to be appearing on Turner Networks and WCW programming as part of some interpromotional matches. The entire theme of the program, buttressed by WCW personnel afterwards, was that WWF wrestlers were going to be wrestling WCW performers, and that you were leading a group of WWF talent in that effort. This, of course, is completely false and was intended to confuse the viewing public. Titan, of course, has no objections whatsoever to you portraying a new or different character devised either by you or the WCW, but will vigorously exercise its right in connection with your attempt to pawn off or suggest to the consuming public that your WCW appearances are in the character of Razor Ramon, in the capacity of a WWF wrestler, or as part of some interpromotional matches involving WWF participation. Accordingly, this is to advise you that Titan has exercised its right under the contract it had with you and will be withholding future payments from you until this matter is further clarified. There's more. I could go on, but that's what it has on there. So, strongly worded letter sent to Scott Hall's house. He pretty much ripped it up, wiped his ass with it, and continued on his way. So, let's read the tea leaves. We know what went down. We know that Vince was feeling threatened. I mean, this is the first time I'm actually seeing this letter. I'm sure it'd be nice to see like in a wrestling Hall of Fame, because this is the epitome of the pettiness. Is it not, Mike Belcaster?
I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, how can you go after a man? Say you're going to withhold work money that he's already worked for. You don't do that, man. That's terrible. And as we all seen, it was completely not a WWF team coming in, and they did not infringe on any intellectual properties.
So
shame.
Meltzer continues, the letter seemed to make no difference to WCW and to Hall, which continued its planned angle with no backing down on the June 3rd Nitro. It is believed to have the first time since the war of 1984 that a promotion has called another promotion's angle a ruse and try to hurt a competing group's top angle on its own television show. So yeah, I mean, this is unprecedented territory in the wrestling business, because essentially WWF, who prided themselves and also wanted to make sure that they punished those that involved themselves in the curtain call, wanted to keep wrestling kayfabe alive, but were willing to put out there that, hey, this is a storyline going on in WCW. Make sure you guys are aware of it. So, speaking out of both sides of their mouth.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting to see the, I guess you would call it pettiness, right? To see the pettiness on behalf of Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation.
So in the midst of all this controversy, if you remember this in 1996, this was around the time where they had that catastrophic pay-per-view, probably the most catastrophic pay-per-view in the history of WWF. And I would be amiss if I did not mention what went down in June of 1996. And this was all due to a circumstance beyond the control of the company. So a downpour in Florence, South Carolina caused the power outage for more than 1 hour of a 2-hour show. When power was restored, Michaels and Smith aka British Bulldog, went on for their pay-per-view grudge match, which was nowhere close to the quality everyone expected from the match due to the number of circumstances, all related to the power outage. So the event I'm referring to is, of course, Beware of Dog, the In Your House show. This was a disaster. They got one of the lowest buy rates in the history of wrestling. Everyone pretty much got a refund because they didn't see half the show. Do you remember this going on live? You were watching WWF at the time, right?
I was. I don't think I ordered this pay-per-view, but I do remember it happening. And listen, man, shit happens. I mean, WCW had that awesome Goldberg versus Diamond Dallas Page match that got cut off on Halloween Havoc. I still have the VHS tapes the cable company sent me and the T-shirt. You know that it was part of a we're sorry package. You know, you got a double stack VHS, 3 hours of pro wrestling on it. I say that's a good deal, but I mean, shit happens, and yeah, I think they just tried to make the best out of it, but it was a clusterfuck.
Yeah, so they continue to talk about it here in the newsletter. McMahon was obviously under considerable pressure with a blank screen during more than half of the time he had allotted for a pay-per-view, and felt it necessary to give the fans who were so patient the main event they had paid to see, so they gave the match away on Raw the next night. However, in hindsight, it appears to be a bad call. There was almost no interest in the replay showing on May 28th because there was no main event match. The build main event match was already seen by everyone who cared as below par match with a poor finish. Certainly nothing worth paying $20 to see again when you could simply call the cable company and get a refund, particularly since a large percentage of pay-per-view viewers watching groups and the Sunday group in most cases wouldn't be able to get together again on a Tuesday night. Continuing down here, this led to considerable requests for refunds and mix-ups between wrestling fans and cable companies. While no figures are in at press time, word almost across the board indicated a buy rate for the show far lower than any show in either WWF or WCW history. I asked you this is fresh off the heels of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash showing up on TV. They're panicking, right? I mean, this has to be all-time low for WWF that we've seen them. They're not the Titan we recognize today.
No, absolutely not. And listen, it's they were really pigeonholed for quite a period back in this day. A spot that we probably might not ever see WWE in again. You know, I feel like things will change before it gets this bad. But yeah, it's crazy to see Vince kind of cornered and seeing his reactions to everything and trying to make good on stuff. And it's wild, man.
Yeah, they eventually only reissued $10 refunds for those that bought the pay-per-view, but it's still, I mean, giving back half of your profit if it already didn't do well because the build was bad. We know the In Your Houses didn't do as well as the pay-per-views were doing, like SummerSlam, Survivor Series, WrestleMania. So they were already struggling there. A bad week only got worse for Vince McMahon. And, you know, sometimes you can't help it. We had the issue, obviously, even today, comparing it with today, we had AEW have the issue with the exploding barbed wire match with Moxley and Kenny Omega, or not Moxley and Eddie Kingston.
It was
Moxley Kenny Omega. See, there you go. Shot nostalgia.
Yeah. Kingston was
all over the place.
Hovering over
exactly
Mox at the end. Yeah.
Moral of the story is they didn't deliver on pay-per-view, and like people felt like, oh, it's going to break the company. It never really does. It's just, you know, people forget about it as long as you put on the next great show on the next night.
Yeah.
All right, moving on here in the newsletter, we had more with Anthony Inoki, and we had the World Wrestling Peace Festival taking place. So the first of what hopes to be many, as we know, winds up being not that many, took place on June 1st at the Los Angeles Sports Arena when the idea of running the show at the Coliseum had been abandoned as a concession to reality. In the wake of numerous problems, lack of internal organization, lack of publicity, and the lack of promotional help from the involved organizations, the show was far from a financial success, as only 2,513 fans paid $64,965 for an event where expenses, when it comes to travel, organization, putting on a show, and numerous banquets, had to be astronomical. The total in the building was somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000, as there were 3,700 freebies, but not all of them came. The promoters had realized it wasn't going to be a box office success, and internal problems with the companies involved kept it from making pay-per-view. So the next step is to recoup costs by putting together a home video and a cable television special from the show. Disaster. I mean, we've been watching the growth of this since the beginning of 1996. It seemed like it would be bearing fruit that could change the business. An absolute unmitigated disaster that Anthony Inoki probably sat there crying with how unsuccessful it actually was. Man, terrible.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if this happened to WrestleMania?
Yeah,
you know, it would have just been a complete loss for everybody. Pro wrestling would be changed for all it is. I mean, Inoki had a great concept. I applaud the man for trying something, but man, it's just so many hurdles in the way that it just didn't, become what it was supposed to be. That sucks.
If you're interested in checking out some of the more details, you guys can obviously go in the newsletter and check out the June 10th, 1996 newsletter. He talks about the match quality. He had said there was no real surprises, saying that it was better in-ring quality than you were seeing on both television, 1996, WCW and WWF. But the crowd itself was small, an interesting mix. A lot of them were cheering for the AAA guys involved. Rocky points of the night, it was, I guess, successful as far as booking goes because there was no sort of anyone going to business for themselves. He had mentioned the only match that seemed to get over huge with every block of the audience was Rey Mysterio Jr. and Ultimo Dragon versus Psychosis and Heavy Metal, which was almost universally considered the best match of the show. Reason I mention this is because on Nitro, we get the debut of Rey Mysterio Jr. And to think 2022, we still have Mysterio going. I think he's an underrated, unsung hero of this era to get WCW over the hump, because we give a lot of credit to NWO, but I don't think Mysterio gets his flowers as far as helping WCW get universal success.
Absolutely. The international outreach that he has is something next to none. And yeah, I mean, like you said, he's still going to this day. It's crazy.
So after the show was over and most of the New Japan contingent left for Mexico, and Inoki went with them to put together the first of what is planned to be 3 World Wrestling Peace Festivals in 1997. So they had planned, I mean, even despite the absolute unmitigated disaster it was financially, they wanted to do one May 1st, 1997 in Mexico City, with later shows in 1997 tentatively planned for Havana, Cuba, and Peking, China, or back in Los Angeles. So I give Anthony Inoki some credit. He's back on the horse. You know what? He believes in the idea. But like you mentioned at WrestleMania, sometimes you put all your eggs in one basket, and financially it sinks you. In 1985, if WrestleMania was this much of a disaster, WWF would have went under. Vince put everything into WrestleMania, and if the pay-per-view didn't go, or if someone didn't cooperate, or he couldn't get the talent, we'd be in for a completely different wrestling landscape.
100%.
So that's pretty much it for that show. So Doug Beatty from the Howard Stern Show was the timekeeper. So just wanted to mention that as well to give more of a 90s flair. Timekeeping isn't a job under normal circumstances going to hurt a show, but in this case, it took the show down because he didn't respond to the referee's cues to ring the bell at the right time. So you've done that, right? You played timekeeper
several times. Yeah.
So tell me about that job as far as stress relation to it, or is it something you could just kind of have a flow as a wrestling fan?
It depends. I mean, thank God I had some of the best referee talent that is out there working with me, and they were really smart to help cue me up and make sure that I kept eye contact with them. Because it's the most important thing. If you miss your cue, which I mean, it does happen. I've missed my cue several times. Sometimes you're getting pulled in different directions, especially when you're behind the scenes and stuff like that you're not able to, completely concentrate on the job. But therefore it is a relatively tough job if you're not accustomed to it, or if you are busy. But I mean, for the most part, you should be able to pick up. The ref does this. You should, ding, ding, ding. Let's go.
Yeah, and it's one of those things similar to referees that or umpires in baseball, if you notice them, that means you're not doing their job. So like in the background of a wrestling show, you just take for granted that things just go as planned, that the timekeeper rings the bell at the right time. So if he's doing their job, and obviously people recognize that it was this person, he was a celebrity at the time, Doug Beatty was not doing his job, so it took away from the show. So if you're noticing him, it's not a good thing.
100%.
All right, so we also have more WCW news. Back to WCW. There is a good chance that the June 7th show in Buffalo will set the all-time company gate record. As of 4 days before the show, they had 8,031 tickets sold for $151,748. The all-time company gate record is $190,000 for the 1989 Flair vs. Funk match at the Great American Bash in Baltimore. This was actually a co-promoted When Worlds Collide event that WCW also did with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So despite Eric Bischoff on air talking about going to New Buffalo Arena, at this point they haven't been allowed in. Bischoff said it was a way to pressure the building to give them a new date. So reason I'm mentioning this is just the upward swing of house show profits. Big numbers they're doing at the gates because they have the star power to do so, and people are wanting to see the WCW product more and more.
Yeah. Listen, you keep Macho Man off TV enough and you only let him work house shows, you're going to be selling out those house shows.
That's a really good point. And I think house shows have been a forgotten entity because of the pandemic created. I mean, there's WWE still running live events all over the place, but not at the frequency they used to. AEW never really even did them. I think they've done like a handful of live events. So it's not the main income anymore. I think the television deals and the streaming services have created a different streaming of revenue for them.
Yeah.
So completely different landscape we're looking at, but they relied heavily on running this talent ragged and getting them town to town to make these gates. All right, so we also had more about the curtain call at Madison Square Garden. So Shawn Michaels apologized to a few wrestlers for not having his priorities straight in regard to the deal at the last Madison Square Garden show where he, Diesel, Razor Ramon, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley did the curtain call. So Meltzer is finally calling the curtain call. We know what eventually will happen, that Triple H will be the one to get punished because obviously Shawn Michaels is not going to fall down the card. He is the moneymaker here. Final thoughts on the curtain call. Do you think it is as big of a deal nowadays, or is this one of those things that people make too big of a deal of?
I think it's way overblown. We see, especially after really great matches, teams, celebrating each other's legacies, their history, and just their athletic performances. It's got, I don't know. It seems like something that was maybe more of a big deal then because of the kayfabe era. And now I think people understand and they could see it. And they're just like, yeah, well, they should be celebrating their friends going to a different promotion or whatever. It's the last time that they all got to be in the ring together for some years, a long time actually. So ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the time it seems crazy. Now to look at it with how transparent wrestling's become with social media and how talent, it's a weird thing. But then it was blasphemous for what they did. So it's weird in the newsletter. I'm sure we may see some more pop up, but it's weird to me that we've only had about 6 total sentences about it by Dave Meltzer. So I think eventually it's going to be more of an issue when he starts recognizing Triple H is being punished for it because he's the only one left. I mean, you're not punishing Shawn Michaels. Yeah. Nash and Hall are gone. Triple H is taking the fall.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So on Monday on the debate, stay tuned for the episode. We will be talking about Brian Pillman, and he's popping up in the newsletter again. So on the morning of June 1st, Brian Pillman and Eric Bischoff agreed to a 3-year deal, which would pay him a figure believed to be in the range of $1 million in total. However, Bischoff, when the contract was presented to Pillman's agents, had 2 provisions in the contract. One, and most importantly, was a 90-day cycles built into the contract, which basically meant WCW could terminate the contract if it wished after every quarterly period. Secondly, Pillman wouldn't be flown first class to all scheduled appearances. So before I move on and talk about what went on, because we obviously know he doesn't spend more time in WCW, do you think that this is just a shot at the injury, that there was no faith in him, that maybe if he couldn't work, they had 90 days. If he wasn't working for 90 days, they could pack his bags and send him on his way?
Yeah, I mean, possibly. We don't know how many other people employed that eventually that did get contracts have that same stipulation in there. So you don't know if it was just a regulatory thing for Eric Bischoff or WCW, but very interesting. Yeah, I think it partially falls on the injury for sure. But yeah, I mean, it could have just been something that was just, thrown into their bullshit contracts.
So allegedly the first class thing was considered a negotiating leverage on WCW's part, but the deal breaker was the 90-day cycle thing that Bischoff felt very adamant that he wanted to have that out. In hindsight, probably not a good decision because Pillman had a lot to give for the business and WCW probably would have liked him there. Would have been interesting how he interacted with NWO in 1997. Bischoff refused to break on either provision. In reality, lost him over not backing down on the cycles. From Bischoff's standpoint, the cycles were probably important since Pillman's injuries in the wreck were severe to the point that they had to reconstruct his ankle with bone from his hip. While doctors had said Pillman would nearly be 100% after a few months recuperation period, there are no guarantees. If Pillman couldn't perform as he once could, Bischoff didn't want to be stuck with $1 million albatross of a contract. From Pillman's standpoint, the cycles were a deal breaker because of his large family and because in reality, he was only being offered a 90-day guaranteed contract. And most importantly, because he believed in some cases, he knew that the top talent like Savage, Sting, Lex Luger, Kevin Nash didn't have that in their deals. So the deal eventually fell through. We talked about hypotheticals if, and to spoil a topic a little bit on Monday, we talked about potentially having to extend someone else's career, whether it be Owen Hart, Brian Pillman, or Brody Lee. Brian Pillman, if he spent some more time during the Attitude Era in WWF, butterfly effect aside, I think he could have been very, very useful in WCW in that NWO angle.
100%. Both sides could have been played beautifully.
Yeah, for sure. And the crazy part is Bischoff was so confident the deal was done that he reinserted Pillman into storylines with clips of his last appearance airing on Nitro on June 3rd. And he was talked about as part of the beginnings of a potential angle, which apparently would have led to a new Four Horsemen versus a veteran Four Horsemen feud with Pillman and Chris Benoit as the leaders of a new group that would feud with Flair and Arn Anderson. Many angles had been discussed over the months with Pillman, who at one point was scheduled to be the original tag partner for Flair in the match with Kevin Green and Steve McMichael. And the idea was dropped because of his injury. So we know that the contract doesn't go through. Bischoff, feeling trigger happy, wanted to get his name out there on television. It didn't go through. Crazy. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. Vince McMahon would never air a promo for anyone not signed up full time.
Yeah, no, 100%. No handshake deal is going to change that either.
So as we know, Pillman goes back to McMahon, and the two sides quickly came together for a 3-year deal. Money terms are not known. We do know it was over $1 million. And there was a confidentiality clause in both set of negotiations. So we'll never know the official number. Pillman did come out and say it was over $1 million, matching what Bischoff had announced to him. Man, crazy scenario. And again, it just airs to the same stuff with Pillman going into business to change the landscape and move the leverage over to the talent. At this time, people take for granted, like the talent feels like they have a lot of leverage now with getting all this huge money. We got Punk coming, working a limited schedule, and Bryan Danielson doing the same, making huge money. At the time, this was unprecedented, and Brian Pillman changed the landscape financially for a lot of the guys, because this is not a union. This is not you are only with the value you bring to the company. And Pillman was able to convince 3 different companies to bid over him.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling.
So this continues, and if you guys want more information on it, it is absolutely fascinating to hear, because he goes into complete detail about Pillman wanted to keep the deal secret, and then he wanted to make it another splash because he wanted to show up directly on television, even because WCW announced that he'd be a part of it. Then he would secretly show up on WWF and try to do the reverse NWO thing on his end, and also show up on WWF television without WCW knowing he had signed the deal. It's just, he had a mind for the business that was beyond his years. He was able to see through a lens that guys in 1996 were unable to see. This is the reality-based programming that eventually would become the Attitude Era. It would become the social media era in wrestling, where you're blurring the lines of reality. The MJF stuff that we're seeing today was based in Pillman's antics in 1996.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you how far ahead of his time Pillman was. It's just absolutely fucked that he didn't get a chance to shine more than he was.
It's crazy. So again, if you guys want more information on Pillman, it goes into length with this. It's about a 3-page, article inside the newsletter about Pillman, so you guys can read that. That's essentially all the information there, but fascinating stuff. And Bischoff goes into detail on the 83 Weeks podcast about it as well. But you know how Bischoff is. He kind of, he just talks long-winded without saying anything sometimes. So
yeah,
I would recommend reading what Meltzer said here. But moving on here. Yeah, exactly. Moving on here about the third potential member of the NWO, which we eventually know will become Hulk Hogan. Dave Meltzer continues to put in the newsletter trying to figure out who it is. He says there are things that lead me to believe it may not be Lex Luger after all, which he believes would be a mistake. Rumors are flying everywhere that it will be Jeff Jarrett, since Vince McMahon on the WWF Hotline brought up Jarrett's name, with Diesel and Ramon as expecting him to join WCW. Jarrett gave Titan notice and is working on giving also his notice to USWA, and he is WCW bound. However, his WWF contract doesn't expire until the fall, so it probably won't let him. The WCW team will be Sting and Savage in either Flair or Luger. So we know it's going to be 2 camps. They're going to have 2 interpromotional war. Jeff Jarrett years later joins NWO 2000 or whatever, the silver NWO. All right. I'm going to ask you this right now, and I want you to just kind of riff with me for a second. Let's pretend in a world, so I play the music again, that Jeff Jarrett is the third man. What does that look like to you? And are people still buying the NWO shirts?
It would have worked for A little bit. I don't think it would have never had any gas in the fucking tank to go further than 6 months. I think it would have flopped. I think Jeff Jarrett, he's not the Jeff Jarrett we know now in any regards. He was just the guy with the guitar. I don't I don't think he would have been over. I think everybody would be like, well, that's interesting. I don't see the appeal for a Jeff Jarrett. Yeah.
I think it would have made from some good TV, but it wouldn't transcend pop culture.
No.
And the reason it transcended pop culture is because Hulk Hogan was larger than pro wrestling. And we talked about from the beginning, all 12 episodes ago, we sat here and said, what Hulk Hogan did, it's easy in hindsight to sit here and go, it was the right decision because it worked. But it was a risk because he had a brand. It's like Superman turning into a bad guy. Despite not being over with the 1996 audience, he put a lot at risk here changing his character. And we watch it not work for a lot of different guys. It works massively for him. And lucky for him, he attached himself to two of the hottest acts in pro wrestling. But there was a chance it wouldn't have worked, and Hogan would have been damaged. His legacy would have, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen big names try to turn sides several times where it failed, and they're just, a couple weeks later they're back to being the face. It's not an easy thing to pull off in such an extravagant moment like they did with the NWO, and I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
So we'll get into Nitro and talk about the debut of Kevin Nash. Meltzer talks about it here and saying the highlight of the angle at the end of the show where Kevin Nash debuted with Scott Hall dressed exactly like Diesel, with the two basically running down WCW, saying how boring the TV show was, and had challenged three of the WCW fossils, bringing up Hogan, Savage, and Sting, and made a remark about getting three of the guys off of kidney dialysis. Great segment, he says. They do mention Hogan by name here, and they're trying to skew away from being the older generation of wrestlers. At the time, they are in their prime. Hogan probably, admittedly, would admit that he's not in his prime. It's funny that the angle of the New World Order was to run down those of the past, but in turn, getting Hogan, who was one of those quote-unquote fossils, transcended them into this level of storyline stardom that you would never have without him.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
All right. So finally here in the newsletter, WCW has expressed interest in Raven to join forces with Diamond Dallas Page. Apparently that was the reason Paige went to an ECW show last week to talk him into coming to WCW. Raven has some good years in WCW.
Yeah.
I believe this is not the time he comes. He probably waits later 1997, early 1998. He'll be in WCW.
Yeah.
But interesting enough that Raven's pretty hot here as well.
My favorite United States champion, Raven. Dude was fucking over, and the flock was over. I'm so happy DDP was able. Bro, come on, bro. You're gonna come over to here. They're gonna pay you millions of bucks, and you're just gonna have to sit there and do your thing, man. I could picture Dallas doing it right now. It was one of the best decisions Raven ever did. He got a lot of notoriety on WCW, especially I think it's the only video game cover he's ever graced the front of. Yeah, I mean, they were treating him like a star, as they should. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, and the thing with Raven is that he played a big part in and Goldberg was so organically over, but what really made that moment of him winning and getting towards the main event picture was beating a certifiable great champion, and he beat Raven for the United States Championship, and that's when people really started to believe the hype train that was Goldberg. It transcended just being a undefeated streak. It started to become real that Goldberg was the next guy to become world champion. So him beating Raven was a really big deal.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
The one thing I do want to mention before we get our fix, we talk about how NWO changed the ratings and changed the trajectory of the Monday Night Wars. And for 83 weeks, we had WCW dominating WWF. The first week that Kevin Nash came in, WCW drew its weakest rating that they've done in quite some time. So they go through the numbers about the shares and blah, blah, blah. But Meltzer notes here, it seems like Kevin Nash meant nothing for the ratings. We know that's not true, but such an immediate knee-jerk reaction here in the newsletter, which is only a week removed from his debut. This is just, I guess, a reminder to let things breathe, that things take time to blossom. So don't react so negatively in the immediate. Let's just let things breathe. There might be something in AEW that they're like, oh, ratings are so down. Rampage is doing all these numbers that are horrible. Dynamite, what's going on? Forbidden Door is not going to be successful. Let things breathe, guys. People have to get time to get acclimated to what they're doing, and consistency gets viewers to come back. And that's what drew these people in. Fans wanted to see what would happen next. And because Nitro did it week after week after week after week, and people had to tune in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, looking at the numbers, not bad ratings in this day and age.
Oh my God. Dude, they would, I think Raw would kill for a 2.7 and a 4.4 share. And Nitro had 2.6 and a 4.4, which the number of viewers, they don't have them listed here, but they were topping. I mean, it would be a high in the last 20 years if they got anywhere close to what they were doing 97, 98.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Dream numbers. But at the time, they're like, yeah, it's low. Not great.
Yeah.
There was times where there were quadruple the amount of people watching wrestling on a Monday night than we have today.
Yeah. It's wild that we've come so far, but we're right back where we started. 2022 is very akin to a great 1996. Fucking wild.
We are getting close to another boom period. I truly feel it. I feel like we're on the precipice of something big. And I know the landscape of media has changed and entertainment. There's so many more options than there were at this time, but I still feel like wrestling, pop culture wise, like I know it's like an informal way of assessing it, but when you see wrestling shirts, I see more of them out in the wild. You go to the grocery store, I see a lot of AEW shirts, and more so than I did a while ago. It feels like it's more trendy, like it's back in the psyche of these people that are more casual fans, and that's good for wrestling. People want to rip on casual fans. No, they're good for wrestling. Having those people being viewers is what makes wrestling get to the next level, and we all needed to get there.
100%. I seen a guy walking down the street in a Dark Order shirt the other day on my way back from getting groceries, and I was like, yeah, I threw it. I was so happy. I was just like, look at this guy. He's walking around with the Dark Order shirt. I was like, it makes your soul smile. You're like, oh, it's like a warm, sunny day.
Love so good. It's not like people that listen to bands like, oh, they sold out. We don't want everyone listening to this. It's my underground secret. No, wrestling. We need fans to keep it going for generation after generation. I want to be an old man with my eventual kids and nieces and nephews loving pro wrestling, and it needs to be there. It needs to be successful. And I don't think we're at a point where we have to worry about it, but there were some lean years in there that we may not have had pro wrestling on the main stage. It might have just been, the VFW hall or going to a state fair. That might have been pro wrestling that we would have had. And look where we are now.
It's crazy.
You ready to get your fix, my man?
I'm ready to get my fix.
Let's get our fix. We have a lot to talk about. We have a Nitro, which I mentioned, June 10th Nitro, and we also have Great American Bash 1996. So let's pop in there.
Hogan looking like he just got off doing a Great American Bash.
So it is time to get our fix, and we are reviewing two events as usual. So as I mentioned before, WCW Monday Nitro, June 10th, 1996, live from Wheeling, West Virginia, the Civic Center. Gotta wonder if the two bad Chads were there. This is right in their stomping grounds. WCW, and if you guys go back and listen to some of the flagship stuff, I've been doing full transparency. I've been going back and listening to the first ever flagship episode and making my journey up to current day. There's at this point 110 episodes. So it's a slow grind, but it's a very enjoyable experience. These guys are like WCW historians. That's why I want to get to the two bad chats on here to talk about their fandom, because this is WCW country and Wheeling, West Virginia, man. This crowd was hot for the Monday Nitro.
They were hot, daddy.
So our current champs were as followed. We had our world champion, still the Giant. Our U.S. champion was still Conan. The world tag team champions, still Sting and Lex Luger. The TV champion was still Lex Luger. And our cruiserweight champion was Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko being the latest person to win their title. But everyone else has some decent long reigns going right now. Longest being the tag champs, man. One of these guys going to lose the titles, and who are they going to lose them to? We don't know. You guys could look it up. We could look it up, but I'm not going to do that. No. We have a lot to review here.
Hell yeah.
So hour number one, we have Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko welcoming us to Nitro. We are seeing a lot of very parallel thinking with the announce crews on Dynamite now, where they're having two separate entities doing the announcing on Nitro. How do you feel about that with Tony Khan bringing that out straight from the Nitro playbook?
It's very interesting. I'm enjoying the shit out of it on AEW's end. I think it's great. I love that they're saving JR for those big matches, but still utilizing him, not kicking him out to the curb. Just it gives everything a difference, and it makes the matches a little bit more enjoyable. Something's going to be big when they bring out Taz and JR, and like they got the whole crew there. It's great. I love it, man. It's awesome to see. I loved it back then. I love Zbyszko. Zbyszko is one of my favorite. I think one of the most underrated, annoying ass commentators.
Did his job though. That's what his job. He's an agitator in the booth.
Loved it.
Yeah. So I mean, even WWF at this time, they were moving towards the Warzone thing at 10 o'clock, and they didn't change announce crews, but it had a different aesthetic. And when they used to put the little thing, the copyright in the corner, and you knew things were going to get a little different because Warzone was a different show than Raw.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we had a recap of last week where Sting slapped the interruption. They've been calling Scott Hall the interruption throughout this. They have not named him by name yet, so it is the interruption. So they showed a recap where Sting is initiating conflict with him. We do open up with the first match here. Scott Steiner defeating Booker T, two eventual WCW World Champions. This match goes 5 minutes and 53 seconds. As I mentioned, Scott Steiner gets the win with the release overhead belly-to-belly suplex, which was a weird finish because at the time, even then, Scott Steiner was doing the Steiner recliner, the submission for the win. Booker T loses. Not a bad match. Definitely good opening. What was your opinion on it?
Listen, I can't get over how different Scott Steiner looks here and then in 3 years. It's just crazy to me to see his transformation. You get this baby face, big haired Scott Steiner looking like he just came fresh out of varsity class. Big dude. I thought it was a great match, man. But you got two guys in there. They always deliver. It wasn't a terrible match by any means. I thought it could have went a little longer. As you said, weird finish, but I mean, overall, a very, very enjoyable match.
Yeah, some classic spots. I mean, we had the spinning belly-to-belly suplex. He goes for the Frankensteiner, doesn't hit it. So Booker put on the brakes, hit a jumping leg lariat. So all the classic spots you expect to get from both Booker and Scott Steiner, which became classic. As you mentioned, Scott Steiner, at this time, if he would have just stayed in this realm of his body type where he didn't get too muscular, I think this would have been more sustainable for a main event run. Like, he eventually becomes champion, but I think he becomes so hampered by his size where it's crazy how athletic he really was coming out of Michigan as an amateur wrestler. And then his run as a tag team with his brother. Yeah, it's his brother, Rick, in WWF. And then also in WCW. I mean, he was a different wrestler, man. And like, if he could have transcended that to make it, transfer that style and like leave the body type again. I'm not trying to body shame the guy. We just got done talking about it on the debate, but it makes him less agile, and it's detrimental to what he was able to do in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, eventually he just became stiff as a board. Like, no matter what, he could do a million different stretches. He could have been doing DDP yoga, DDPY. He could have been all over it, but he just was a brick wall that essentially couldn't really move as well as everybody else, and really couldn't keep up with the times, I think. So by the tail end of his career, it was almost hard to watch him because you could see it, and it wasn't hidden well at all.
Yeah, it's actually crazy too, because I see a lot of shades of Braun Breaker in what Scott Steiner's doing at this point. It's not just the aesthetic with the singlet, and it's the way he moves in the ring that he looks a lot like what Scott and Rick were able to do at this time. So I'm hoping Braun Breaker's future could be very, very similar to what Scott Steiner was able to do. And they have a future star in there. And I just, and this is a different conversation for another time. You have guys that have the legacy. You look back at Curtis Axel, he was a Hennig. And you have Bray Wyatt is a Rotunda. And Scott Steiner, I mean, Braun Breaker is a Steiner. So I don't know why they don't lean into having these third generation stars. You even have The Rock's daughter who is going through training. They're changing her name to not have the Johnson name. It seems like, I know you don't want them to be blurred and grouped in, but it's helped Charlotte. It's helped Randy Orton, but who knows? It's infuriating. They just won't call him Steiner. They give him every other Steinerism aside from the name.
Yeah, and it always drove me nuts, especially with Curtis Axel. I think his career would have been skyrocketed and much more attention would have been put on him in a good way if they would have gone on with it. I don't. You give him a guy named Curtis Axel, is such a weird fucking name to begin with. Braun Breaker, like it's just weird, you know.
His name was McGillicuddy originally. Like that was his original name.
And not Nigel McGillicuddy. It's so like why swerve away from it when you have all this legacy, especially when you own the network. You have all the footage to put into it. You could tie it in as you did like a Randy Orton, you know. It just doesn't make any sense to me, man.
Yeah, so conversation for another time, but it was just an interesting thing I thought of when I was watching Scott wrestle here, because it was very similar to what Braun's able to do now. So after the break, Gene Okerlund interviews Scott Steiner concerning his match with Rick against Fire and Ice at the Great American Bash coming up. Because of all the non-finishes in their last few matches, in this match, there must be a winner. Deborah McMichael interrupts Scott's interview and stumbles through a plea to stop the match this Sunday because her husband gets so crazy when he's mad. She asks Gene if he could set up a meeting with Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Gene's going to talk to the coach, Bobby Heenan, to see what he can do. So another standard Gene Okerlund thing, trying to put some fire, little cheese, as the Chads would say, against Fire and Ice. Just trying to build up the Great American Bash card. Not a lot of fire, if you want to use that for this match coming up for Great American Bash. No interest really.
Little damp.
Yeah, just like one of those. It's hard to get it lit, but you know, maybe the match will deliver. We'll talk about it in just a little bit. The next match here, we have Diamond Dallas Page defeating Jim Powers. This was quick, 4 minutes and 6 seconds. Obviously, DDP on the uprise. They have not been really capitalizing on him winning, you know, the ring, with the Lord of the Ring, as they were calling it. He seemed like he was destined to be a main eventer. He's just sort of doing stuff. Like, I don't know. This reminds me of a lot when they have some momentum based on Dynamite. The roster's so stacked that someone falls to the wayside. This is Jim Powers' Nitro debut. So just put that on there as well. DDP gets the win, obviously, but they're like kind of holding him in place. He hasn't really progressed.
Yeah, could you imagine if they did a Money in the Bank and they didn't even let the guy walk out with the briefcase the next week?
Right.
And they were like, oh, we forgot about it. Like, whatever. Like that, what a blow to DDP that must have been. But I mean, great wrestler. He does a good job being DDP here. And it's fun to kind of watch the transition, but you can't help but feel bad for the guy. It sucks. You know, they just kind of took all that momentum off of him and threw him in a match with Kenny Powers, his cousin.
He was supposed to get a title shot too, and that never happened either. They just came out and said, like, yeah, you're just not going to get it. Like, what's the point of, and they did that whole goddamn
terrible
pay-per-view based on this thing. Like, what?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Grow up, man. Grow up.
All right. So we had a video recap of Benoit and Sullivan. You know, they are just trying to just enhance this feud. Benoit and Sullivan's just going to continue forever. And I'm not meaning it in that way, but they go and they feud for like 3 years straight here in WCW.
Yeah, he did not respect the Booker man.
We had a video montage of US champ Conan. He puts over El Gato like he's a real character, but we know under the mask it's Pat Tanaka, longtime WCW alum. So I'm here for Conan. We're going to see him later in the night or at the Great American Bash. But, you know, El Gato is Pat Tanaka. Did you know that?
I did not.
Oh,
pretty crazy.
Right. Yeah, when I ever say a guy in a mask who looks awkward and that like has no history to it, I look it up and I'm like, oh, it's that guy. So
yeah, much like Jerry Lynn, you know, that was a shocker too. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, same thing with John Tenta back in the day and Attitude Era with the oddities. Like they put that weird bump on his head. So people are like, it looks like Tenta, but he's carrying Cartman. Makes no sense to me. But whatever.
Yeah, still mind blown about that one too.
You want to take the lead on this one? We have Sting versus Ming.
Hell yeah, man. We listen. What could you expect out of an awesome fucking throw to? I mean, it was a short match. It was just a fucking feud builder. We've seen Sting get the win, but it was fun. I thought it a little weird to see Ming tap out to the Scorpion Deathlock.
It was
just me, big fucking badass Ming, especially after now you hear all the stories about him. See him kind of did a little bit of a bitch move there. A little bit of a bitch move.
According to Jericho, he bit a dude's nose off somewhere. Is that a real story?
I don't know, man. It sounds like something out of Dirty Work, So I got
Crazy.
more bit my nose off, but I wouldn't put it past them. Talking if you ever got in an elevator with a guy like him and Barbarian, I would piss myself. Not just out of fear. I mean, they're scary guys, man. But I mean, good back and forth. I'd love to see more out of a match like this. I think Sting and Ming could have been a tag team, man. Sounds fucking, it rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, it does. The thing with Ming, I remember when he showed up in WWF in 2001 and he was like under contract with WCW. So it was like a weird situation. I remember being very excited that he was back and they did nothing with him as Haku.
Yeah.
So,
I loved the big fro though. When he go, you just fucking.
He showed up at the Rumble, right? No
like
one.
That.
He was like in a surprise entrant.
It was awesome. I popped for it. I think he hung around for a little bit too.
He did, yeah. Same music too that he had back in the day, like the birds chirping and stuff that he had all the way back when he was teaming with Andre. So same music, really awesome.
Yeah,
I'm a big Ming Haku guy. I think he never quite got his main event push. I think he could have been a legitimate world champion in any promotion. I just don't think anyone really pulled the trigger because he was so good at making his opponents look good. And you know, there's some value in that as well.
Listen, for a big guy like he was, that's an underrated fucking aspect, man.
Absolutely. And he allegedly the toughest guy. You ask anyone, I've watched a lot of shoot interviews, high spots, videos and all that. Everyone mentions Ming or Haku being the toughest guy in the business, bar none.
Yeah, I believe it.
So Gene Okerlund holds the mic between Bobby Heenan and Deborah. Heenan insinuates that Deborah has been with Flair every night this week, and now she wants to talk to him. All right, Heenan welcomes Deborah into Flair's dressing room and then violently slams the door in Gene's face. We hear screaming, and eventually Deborah storms out of the room, all disheveled and upset. So, again, just some more Flair things going on here. Innuendo, some edginess to the product here. You're supposed to make your own assumptions about what went on in there. But again, this is just changing the product. If you go back to January, this would never fit on the show, but now they're doing things like this. And eventually WWF takes it and runs with it and, starts chopping off Val Venus's pee-pee. But, this is sort of the precursor to it.
Yeah. Way better than Colonel Parker's wedding. So I'll take this shit all day fucking long.
That was the first episode we did here, right?
I believe so. It was first or second. That was just horrible.
I was like, who booked this? Who picked 1996 WCW? God damn.
But I mean, look at the evolution we've gone in just such a little time here. 13 episodes, and we're already fucking flying through, gimmick changes, whole changes going on in the business in general. I'll take the innuendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And evolution's a mystery, if they do say. So Jim Duggan defeats Dave Taylor in the next match here. This match goes 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Typical stuff. Duggan tapes up his fist, KOs Taylor, and gets the win here. Usual stuff we get from Duggan. What's his place on the card here, man? Like, he got a world title shot a couple weeks ago. This match is just there. It's filler to me.
Yeah. No, I think he's just filler. I mean, he's just there to be the guy that gets the America chant, USA, USA.
Yeah.
That's how they see it. I mean, there's not much else you could do, though. I mean, he was already kind of past his prime here. I wouldn't have been putting him in title pictures even. I mean, he's just a gimmick at this point.
The winner of the first ever Royal Rumble still hanging around here in 1996. And, get well soon, Jim Duggan. I know you're not, he's not doing too well or he's bad at having some health issues. So, we love Jim Duggan. It's just he doesn't fit in 1996 WCW.
No, not at all. Not with the way the business is changing, Daddy.
So we get a video package from the upcoming Malenko Mysterio match at the Great American Bash. Rey Mysterio has not debuted in WCW yet, so they have a lot of AAA footage of Rey Mysterio. So the working relationship that WCW had with New Japan and also AAA goes a long way here, that they're able to use the footage, and similar to AEW being able to use Rev Pro footage or Japanese Stardom footage, New Japan Pro Wrestling footage. It goes a long way in legitimizing who they are. It's not just stock footage of him in a studio. It's actually him wrestling, and it creates a dynamic that he feels important on his entry.
Yeah, 100% history always makes things better.
So Gene Okerlund interviews Big Bubba, and essentially he just talks about wanting to beat the crap out of John Tenta, the Shark. So he said he's going to sweep that beach whale to the trash at the Great American Bash. So, yeah, Big Bubba versus Tenta here. I love Earthquake, by the way. Like, I think he's very underrated big man, but the Shark gimmick is not for me. And we'll see the end of the Shark gimmick coming up very soon. And he's just going to be wrestling as Tenta. But after the Earthquake thing, man, I think Earthquake was him in 1990 was the best version of himself. Should have continued that run. Just be Earthquake, whatever. Do the moves, do everything.
Yeah, no, terrible. I do love the line. Gonna sweep that trash at the American Bash. It's got Dustyisms written all over it.
So we start hour number 2. We have Eric Bischoff and Bobby Heenan on commentary. So a complete switch. No more Shivani, no more Zbyszko. Take the lead here. We got the Giant versus Scott Norton for the championship. Scott Norton hopping the rankings and getting a title shot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you got the Giant. It's definitely on a hell of a run right now. Scott Norton never did it for me. I went into this going squash. It was basically that. I mean, Scott Norton. Don't get me wrong. Great look, badass dude. I mean, he did great when he was in the NWO. I loved it. But you got a minute and 42 seconds match. Giant just choke slams him. Lex Luger comes out and makes the save again when he goes to pick him back up for a second chokeslam. It's just fucking wild.
What do you think about them having Giant defend his title against relative jobbers? Let's be honest. Call them what they are. We have him defending the title almost every week. Do you think it devalues the title to have him defended in this capacity, or is it help?
I think it devalues his run. I don't think it devalues the title. I mean, you're putting him up against these random, Jim Powers and shit like that. It's not doing anything for him. I think it doesn't do anything for the title picture, especially when he goes from here to like wrestling a Ric Flair or something like that. Like, where's the in between? He's the top of the guy. He should be wrestling all top guys. That's top guy shit. FTR says it best. So I mean, these are kind of just like title matches for the sake of title matches. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's two schools of thoughts. There's you want to create some mystique for your champion. You can have the Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar approach where he's on 4 times a month or 4 times in 2 months. Big Show or the Giant here has been every bit on television every single week. And it's a different mindset. He's a young guy. They want to get him a lot of work. But the value in the champion, I think he'd be more benefited from just standing in the ring and cutting a promo with the title, just being menacing instead of beating Scott Norton match. Like, who cares? Nobody thinks Scott Norton's winning the title. Nobody. No, I'm 7 years old. I don't think he's winning the title. Come on.
I'd be shocked at all. Holy hell, that would have shocked me more than Hogan becoming the third man.
But if any person is just jumping the line, what does it say about contenders at this point?
No, and it's like it takes the whole legitimacy out of being a champion. Completely gone. Like, I mean, what the hell? How did Scott Norton get up here? Where the fuck has he been? Well, just throw him in the match. Like, it sucks the whole wind out of the damn thing.
So we have Giant continue to brawl with Luger. He goes to chokeslam him through the VIP table for a second time, but Luger fights him off with a champagne bucket. So he tries to get out of there as the Dungeon of Doom arrive. Giant power walks to the back while Luger grabs a mic over the announce table. And they're just building the match at Great American Bash for the title. So we both know that his title reign will continue. Lex Luger does feel like a legitimate threat here. It feels like a main eventer. And that piece that was missing in 1994 WWF feels like he kind of has it here. It feels something clicked.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoy him on WCW by far than I did his WWF run. And a big shout out to the VIP table making its return again.
Hell yeah.
You ain't got no class. You ain't getting no ass.
So the Nasty Boys showed up on an NBC5 Chicago talk show and issued Dennis Rodman a Nasty Boy shirt because he's a nasty person. Obviously, the Chicago Bulls are all the talk in the sports world. They're in the NBA Finals. We do eventually see Dennis Rodman have his time in the sun only a year later on WCW on television. So the relationship's there. He's a wrestling fan, and it goes a long way. And I think WWF started that with bridging the gap with celebrities and athletes, and they still do it today, giving championship belts to Super Bowl winning teams, World Series winning teams. But the relationship really helps WCW transcend into, I guess, pop culture as an important piece to what becomes their landscape of fandom.
Yeah, absolutely. As a Chicagoan, I was all for seeing Dennis Rodman on Nitro. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome," And obviously, we've seen it got a lot. It got pushed a lot further. So I fucking love it, man.
So we also had Kevin Green appearing on Jay Leno. They showed that as well. Yeah, building up their match as well. We have the two football players taking on Flair and Arn later on Great American Bash. So just they're using a lot of video package and celebrity driven things to build up their matches, which is cool. I think that helps the brand.
Yeah.
Next match here is not really a match, goes less than a minute. Lord Steven Regal defeats Billy Kidman in 57 seconds. So Kidman misses a 450 splash, wins with a stump killer. This is the first time we saw Billy Kidman on TV. He literally looks like he's 10 years old. If you guys are familiar with Billy Kidman, he got hot later on in his WCW run with the tank top and also the jean shorts, all that stuff. He had a good run as Cruiserweight champion in WWE, but he looks out of his element here. Very, very tiny.
Yeah.
WWE wasn't ready for him yet.
Absolute baby face. He didn't have the flock appeal that ended up growing onto him, staying with him for a very, very, very long time. Yeah, interesting to see him pop up though. It was really cool. I'm a big Billy Kidman mark, so I popped.
I did very much enjoy his run when he was Cruiserweight champion as a heel in WWE. That was my familiar with it, but I also remember bits and pieces. The program he had with Goldberg, that mini program. So he eventually gets himself over, and it's funny to see where he was on the card and literally and physically small. Like he was on Land of Giants, and he looks like a 10-year-old boy.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll let you take the lead on the next one. It is our first DQ finish of the night.
Oh boy, I am excited. So we got the Nasty Boys, we got Public Enemy. Of course, there's the match itself just screams clusterfuck and DQs, man. We got, it's your usual match between them. Grudge has a broken arm. He's suffering a little bit. It was good. I think there was some fun. We got a little commercial break. The best thing about this match was the goddamn Glacier commercial. I'll tell you. Oh yeah. The hype is real, man. I'm fucking ready for some snow to be coming down. From
we need him here, man. We need him here.
We got to get some Glacier love here. But yeah, I mean, Rock brings out the weapon. Everybody's just fucking, it's your typical match. Sags delivers a pump handle slam at some point. Rock goes for the cover. 1, 2, no, you know how it goes. Yeah. And then, I don't know. It was a DQ. Same old shit. The longest fucking match of the show tonight.
True.
So kudos to that, man. But it's the same bullshit that you expect from a Nasty Boys Public Enemy.
Control C, Control V, Public Enemy versus Nasty Boys. You're gonna get what you're gonna get. So funny note is that while you pour your shot, I do search for a lot of wrestling inspired things on eBay. And out of curiosity, there is a Macho King purple set of tights that's going for like $40,000 on eBay, which is a little bit out of my price range. I'm not going to be able to swing that this month, but there is Public Enemy's ring worn outfit. There's like a Nick outfit they wore in ECW, which I thought was awesome.
That is badass.
Yeah, that's on eBay right now. If you guys are interested in getting some Public Enemy swag, something they said they wore in ECW, but it's very interesting to see. And yeah. I also saw a Mikey Whipwreck ring-worn shirt as well. So, I'm on the look for some of those things. So
I had lunch with Mikey Whipwreck once. It was a great time.
He's from my neck of the woods over here.
Lovely, lovely gentleman he is. And he was a blast to fuck around with for an afternoon. We went to Portillo's. It was great.
Yeah, Mikey Whipwreck, one of the underrated faces of ECW. And, man, his run with Mick Foley there, I think he's very underrated. And a big part of what ECW's success was, like characters like him and Dreamer really got the brand to feel, it wasn't just violence. It was, building sympathy towards these characters.
Yeah. Mikey likes it. He really likes it.
we should do ECW. I think we should. I know it sucks because we can't have the soundtrack, but man, ECW would be so much fun.
We can have it in our heads. I still have some VHSs too. Don't tempt me for a good time, man. I got Barely Legal on VHS over the pandemic for dirt cheap price.
The television show, do they have them sequentially, or is it just because I remember watching them? It was just random ones on there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think they do have them sequentially, at least by year.
I mean, we could just do 12 episodes, 12 pay-per-views in a year.
I'm fucking down for that. I mean,
Is there
that's
12
where the
pay-per-views
meat
in
and
there? I
bones
don't know
is.
if they do 12. Just do their
I think they
full
did,
year
like,
pay-per-views.
8. Yeah, I'm fucking down.
Little mini
It
series.
could
Let us know
be
what you guys
a
think. Put it in the comments. You guys want us to do ECW? I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd be down for some ECW. You let me know. I'm always down.
Well, we're doing this until November, so we'll decide then.
Hell yeah.
All right,
Ooh,
shot of
spilling,
nostalgia for the
spilling.
DQ finish. Shout out to Public Enemy, the Nasty Boys, and Ring Worn Gear.
Do that. Bam, bam.
All right.
All right.
Hulk Hogan video clips continue. We know the Giant's not going to be happy. He doesn't want to see Hogan's face. With a recap of the recent Mongo Green Savage happenings, and we lead right into our main event, which is the WCW World Tag Team Championship. Sting and Lex Luger versus Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. So I hope you got your other shot ready, because this was a no contest. I'll let you get it ready. This match was really good, man. I had a good time watching it. It was a typical tag match. It went 13 minutes and 23 seconds. They didn't exactly ring the bell at the end. The angle after the match was more important, because we'll get into it in 1 second. A lot of good action in this match. We had the classic Flair spots, flipping over the turnbuckle. Luger brings Flair back into the ring with a suplex. Very, very good stuff from all these guys. They're in their prime. Good stuff. Trying to get Luger ready for the main event at Great American Bash as a contender for the championship, but also this Sting and Luger team still has some legs under it. I thought for sure maybe they would put the title on Flair and Arn, especially when you have them teaming at Great American Bash against the football players. Maybe you want some more legitimacy to the tag team, but no, they leave the titles on Sting and Luger. They don't want to put it on a well-oiled machine. And I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this, where you have literally 2 concurrent storylines, or 3 really, with Luger happening at one time. He's like 2 different characters.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's Heckle and Jive, or what is it? Heckle and Jekyll and Hyde. Help me out. Yep. I got all tongue-tied there for a minute. Yeah, Heckle and Jive.
It could be Jekyll. It could be Hyde and Jekyll if you want.
Yeah, I'm all for it, but yeah.
Matt and Jeff.
It's interesting to see. And I mean, of course, it was a great match. You got 4 pillars of greatness in there. And, again, say what you want about Lex Luger, but he really honed in on this WCW career. And I was a big fan. This is awesome. Anytime you see Flair and Anderson, how can you not pop? It's crazy.
So chaos ensues. And then over at the announce table, as they typically would end the show, Heenan goes on a tirade about Randy Savage showing up at Great American Bash. Surely this Sunday, Savage wouldn't hit a man with glasses, is what Heenan says. Heenan spots Scott Hall coming up beside Bischoff and gets out of there. Bischoff wonders where the big surprise is. Looks right behind him. It's Kevin Nash. There he is. I have the full quote here that I want to read. This is Nash's first words on WCW television, and it's some good stuff. Nash says to Bischoff, "You've been out here for 6 months running your mouth. This is where the big boys play, huh? Look at the adjective, play." It's actually a verb, by the way. We ain't here to play. Famous words. We see that clip all over the place. Big stuff. Bischoff is cowering at these 2 guys. Really good stuff. They're initiating the NWO, man. It's starting all in front of us.
Yeah. Again, this just as big as Hall coming out and doing that promo. I think this is right up there with it. I think Hall's is a little more important in retrospect, but I mean, come on, this is the first time you're seeing Big Daddy Diesel come up on your WCW Nitro, and it just really, really laying it in the Bischoff, man. Love the wordplay. Oh, this is where the big boys play. The attitude, the cadence, the fucking irreplaceable, man. And Nash was such a smart guy to pull it off the way he does. I love it, man.
So as the show goes up the air, the last word you hear is from Nash. "Bring what you got. The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it." So big words coming. I mean, crazy way to end the show. You had to see next week. If that happened, you're like, sit in front of your TV. I can't believe that just happened. There's no rewinding the DVR. If you had a tape in, I'm sure everyone's like rushing to go check it out again. Big moment in wrestling history that really stands the test of time. I think it was just as well received as it was probably then. Feels like a big deal. Feels like we're on the cusp of something very, very special.
Yeah, I mean, it's jaw-dropping stuff, and again, show ends in chaos, leaves your jaw hanging, clamoring until next Nitro. Can't wait to. Or you go to work on Tuesday. Everybody's got the. Hey, did you see that Kevin Nash showed up? You know, he's doing that. Like, way to fucking put it over. I love it, man. And I love Hall and Nash is already buddying. Hey, Big Ming. You know,
So good.
Love it, man, and it's so cool just to see it all like coming together, knowing where it goes. It's beautiful to go down this fucking road again, man. Big Ming.
So before we move to the next event, which is Great American Bash, we got to take our shot for the no contest. So I got my shot nostalgia report over here. So Matt, I hope you brought Matt from Extra Cooler. I hope you brought your drinking shoes, man, for the Bash of the Beach episode. I don't know how many DQs are in those 2 episodes, but bring your drink of choice. You want to do shots of beer too? I know that's your thing on the Extra Cooler show. What's in the cooler? Just pour them in little shot glasses.
Yeah, you could have a little Extra Cooler segment on shot of nostalgia. You know, put your bruiser over. We're cool with that.
What's in the cooler? Yes. Check out Extra Cooler's episode that dropped yesterday. Great episode. They talk about SummerSlam 1997. Always a great listen. I love those guys over at Extra Cooler. Shout out to them. I know that Matt right now is at the Yankee game. I don't know what the results are, and the weather held up here in New York, so hopefully got a great time. But we'll chat about them later. No contest. Let's take a shot.
Cheers,
for
Big
Sting.
Bang.
Luger. Cheers, Big Bang. All right. That's going to put some hair on your chest, Big Bang. All right. Let's move over to Great American Bash 1996, and this is our pay-per-view. This is from Baltimore, Maryland. June 16th, 1996. Our champions are all the same. Our hosts are different, though. Tony Schiavone and Dusty Rhodes join us. Tony does mention the death of Dusty's old tag team partner and friend, Dick Murdoch. So they talk about his death here. It's just interesting to put perspective when they mention timely things that happen on it really puts perspective into the timeline of what was going on in the landscape when they show graphics of those that passed away. Talking about Dick Murdoch's death. You read about his name and read about his contributions to wrestling, but it's fascinating to me to see, like, you know, him mentioned here on Nitro.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very crazy to just think about, like, years past. You know, you get a lot of it, and especially when you're rewatching shit. But man, I mean, Dick Murdoch and Dusty with Tom Buddy, baby, it's crazy. That poor Dick gone.
So we have Sergeant Craig Pittman bringing out the U.S. flag for the national anthem. This is obviously the Great American Bash. This is very Americana. That, you know, despite NXT trying to have you believe that they're Great American Bash, not going to change their ropes to red, white, and blue. They're just going to do their normal shit. It is an American themed pay-per-view. So this is how WCW used to do it. Half of me believes NXT, as a side little note, that they use the WCW pay-per-views and like bastardize them because they want to make them seem minuscule compared to what they used to be. Like they do Halloween Havoc. They do, what is this one? Great American Bash. What was the other one they do as well, though? Did they do Bash at the Beach?
I think they did do Bash at the Beach.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't done Fall Brawl and just completely fucking took it over everything.
At first, it seemed like it was a tribute, but then it kind of seems like an insult when you do it on your minor league promotional thing. It's like a slight dig at WCW. Like, yeah, this used to be your big event. Yeah, now it's our enhancement talent.
Yeah, then we'll use in our house or in your house for you know, because those didn't sell well either. So we're just chalking everything into the shit content.
Yeah, I did love the in your house thing with Gargano segment inside the door. That was really funny.
Yeah, no, listen, it's awesome when you get that little bit of nostalgia coming back, but like, you do it right, please. Don't put shame to my Halloween Havocs.
Yeah,
fucker.
Some would say Halloween Havoc was WCW's WrestleMania. I've read that argument somewhere.
I've seen some great Halloween Havocs in my time, man. Halloween Havoc '98 is one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time.
Yeah, Halloween Havoc is a lot of fun.
Fact. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that Dynamite and AEW are bringing back the themed style events where all I want from Dynamite, I want a pool. I know we got the Jericho Cruise Dynamite where Hangman and Kenny won the titles, but I really want the poolside like Nitro feel where like you get just that is such an electric environment. I hope they bring that back.
always one of my favorite things to see on WCW. And, I loved when they would fucking did the pool thing, Sting coming down from the helicopter.
So good.
Man, like you could do that with Darby, make it all fucking happen. Like,
Hell yeah.
give me my flowers, damn.
Give Mike Belcaster his flowers and pool parties for AEW.
Yes.
So our opening match here for Great American Bash, we have Rick and Scott Steiner defeating Fire and Ice. This match went 10 minutes and 28 seconds. Scott finishes off Norton with a not so good looking Frankensteiner. He finally hits it. Some decent work in this match. You got Steiner lines and then also belly to belly suplexes. So classic Steiner match. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good opener, set the pace for the night. Yeah, I think it was every bit as advertised and what you'd expect from a Steiner and a Fire and Ice match.
Yeah, and just goes, the Steiners can make anybody look as good as they did at Fire and Ice.
So we have Gene Okerlund talking with Kevin Sullivan and Jimmy Hart. Kevin Sullivan says he knows what makes a horseman without ever being one himself, which I thought was funny. There
Strong
to
words
talk
from
about.
A little man.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck you, Taskmaster. Fuck you.
Yeah, baby, you don't know what you're talking about.
Want to take the lead here for the U.S. champion, our beloved Conan, taking on El Gato, aka Pat Tanaka.
Yeah, man. Listen, we got Elgato coming out. It's just, watching this is just surreal. Knowing that it's Tanaka, it's fucking just crazy. They get a couple arm drags, some leg sweeps. The crowd's not having any of it. It's just dull, Gato eventually grapevines the arm, and he's using those ropes for leverage, like your natural Tanaka shit. But listen, it keeps going back and forth. Tanaka gets thrown out. He's laying on the floor. He's fucking looks injured. And then we come back and Conan gets that beautiful Alabama slam, which is just Mexico's favorite move is the Alabama slam.
Yeah, their beloved son, Hardcore Holly, mastered it.
You never see it done better, but he hits that Alabama slam. He gets that 1, 2, 3. It's a 6 fucking minute match, which is great. Right yeah, beautiful, man. Right on the minute. Conan was good. That's why they brought him around. He knows time. It wasn't bad. It was okay, but it could have been a fucking 2-minute match and did the same impact. So it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, it was fine, as Hawk would say.
It's
actually
fine.
He broke out a new one on the flagship yesterday. It was meh. I think it was meh. That's his new.
I love the big meh.
That's the one.
little meh was good.
So in the back we have Sting and Lord Steven Regal. They're building up their match later. They exchange insults. So Sting insinuates a lot of things about Steven Regal. Make your own assumptions there.
The notes
next
are
match.
Yes.
Next match we have DDP defeating Marcus Bagwell, or was it Marcus Bagwell? We don't know what his identity is because he's on Twitter and pretending he is. This match was advertised. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was supposed to be DDP versus Jim Duggan, was it not? That's what they just said on Nitro.
Yes.
So
Doesn't
I don't
make
know
any
what.
sense.
I'm not complaining here because I know we were just saying that Jim Duggan doesn't have a place. Marcus Bagwell didn't create, I guess, the best match. I mean, it went 9 minutes and 29 seconds. People are really starting to get behind DDP. They popped huge every time he attempted the diamond cutter, and then when he eventually hit it, this was a pretty good match. I think Bagwell moves around pretty well. It's a precursor for what he's going to be able to do in the mid card of WCW. Some good spots here. DDP's starting to finally show the shades of becoming a world champion. He's coming into his own, understanding who his character is. I thought this was a good showcase for him. And biggest thing, like I said, crowd starting to recognize the diamond cutter as one of those finishers that ends matches completely, and they pop for it as soon as he gets the head on the shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, you could say whatever you want, but the diamond cutter and the stunner, I think, had the same crowd pop. I think they really got behind it. When Austin would go for that stunner, the crowd would light the fuck up. And the same thing with the diamond cutter. I think it was Paige was set, man. He had a great move set. He had the look. He got the voice, and everything matched up perfectly. And eventually, when he does come into his own, I mean, he was cutting great promos. Macho Man put him over. It was good stuff. We know the history behind it, but I loved, you couldn't help but not be a DDP fan. I don't know what it is. The guy's electric, bro. You know, he's just got that feel. You're like, I want to hang out with this dude. I like it, man. Even if his ribs are taped up for 20% of his career. Like, it's great, man. But I thought this wasn't a bad match.
So this next match here is what this pay-per-view is heralded as one of the greatest matches in WCW history. Yeah. We have the WCW World Cruiserweight Champion Dean Malenko defeating Rey Mysterio Jr. in his debut in WCW. So to start the match, we have Mike Tenay joining for Rey Mysterio's debut. He is someone who's supposed to be an expert on AAA wrestling. Go back and watch this match. There's so much good in it.
Yeah.
Everything you imagine Rey Mysterio can do today, he does it 10 times better then. I mean, Rey looks great today. Don't get me wrong, but he's stuck in the Fed environment where he's not able to show the things he can do. Go all the way back to All In, where he was wrestling, teaming with Kota Ibushi against the Young Bucks, by the way, Young Bucks. Hashtag Young Butts. This match is, dude, so good. Yeah. SummerSlam planches, a springboard Hurricane Rana, which we become to know and love in WWE as the West Coast Pop. Is there, I mean, you could think of any other examples of it, but this is the perfect example of how to put someone over in a losing effort. Both guys went out there and tore the house down. Match went 17 minutes and 48 seconds. You couldn't have asked for a better debut from Rey. Man, fantastic.
Perfect storm. Absolutely. You couldn't have give any match on the card the perfect amount of time. Like, this was beautiful. This was so fucking awesome. And this is like, Malenko does not get enough credit, I think.
He doesn't.
I think like he's one of the best fucking wrestlers that we grew up watching. And this match proves it. And he's had so many other matches just as fucking good. So it's crazy. I loved when Mysterio went for the Hurricane Rana and Malenko just catches him and fucking power bombs the shit out of him. And like, little guys. I mean, Malenko's not the biggest dude, but he had fucking so much strength, so much technical moves. It was, God, this is why I'm a wrestling fan. This match right here, these little matches, I fucking love this.
Yeah, and I think people look back at WCW in this era and they give a lot of credit to the NWO and the big names, but behind this, you come in for the NWO and the star power. You stay for these matches, the cruiserweight matches that are driven by Rey Mysterio Jr., Dean Malenko, eventually Chris Jericho. Those guys were the driving force to keeping wrestling fans entertained, because the work rate, undoubtedly, when you get the older guys in, Macho Man aside, I mean, later on in his career, he starts to falter, but Hogan matches, Goldberg, all those guys, work rate was sacrifice. Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio, they are you put this match on a AEW pay-per-view today, a AAA pay-per-view today, a New Japan Pro Wrestling event today, it would still be heralded as a great match. It stands the test of time. It is probably even better because you put it in the context of what else we were seeing and what followed it. The next match here, it puts it in perspective.
100%. I mean, we got Big Bubba with Jimmy Hart, baby. Like he's the pussy cornet. Like there's no other way to describe him, man. And then you got Big John Tenta. This is officially, there's no more Shark. We're just John Tenta here, and it's, how do you say it? Meh. Exactly. It was the shits, man. Tenta defeats Big Bubba, Big Boss Man, Big Jimmy. It was okay. I don't think we could have skipped this. We didn't need shit here. Man.
So no evil fish music. He makes it clear that he's a man, not a fish, not a shark. I mean, John Tenta is one of the more underrated big men in the history of wrestling. I think at the end of the day, he's going to be remembered for the earthquake stuff and gone too soon. I think he's one of those guys that has the ability to be a monster heel, but he gets, I guess, too often put in these goofy stuff. And that's his run right now. His run right now through WCW is just goofy. And I haven't seen anything impressive from him.
Yeah, goofy's a good term. Raven, when I worked with Raven, he would use the term goofy a lot. That's fucking goofy. That's how I feel about this match.
Yeah.
It's
So
fucking goofy.
If you go to the Pro Wrestling Illustrated for 1996, they talk about this being one of the worst feuds in the history in 1996, and good reason why. It's not great.
Yeah.
Because even the work rate sucked, but it's just goofy in general. They're like threatening to cut off Jimmy Hart's hair and cut Tenta's beard and Bubba's beard. It's a mess. So
clusterfuck all over the place. Yeah.
Bubba gets his beard shaved off at the end of this match. So who cares? 5 minutes and 22 seconds. I love John Tenta. I love Big Boss Man, but like the two of them together, it was just, for some reason, you put this in any other era, put Boss Man, I'm sure they wrestled in 1990. Put them there. I'm sure it was a better match. It's just, this had nothing for me.
Yeah. Big Bubba had to walk so Big Boss Man could fry pepper. Yeah.
Oh my, that's a quote. That's what you clip for the TikTok. That's what you clip.
That's the TikTok clip.
And we need a clip of Pepper, the whole thing.
Oh,
all
poor
right.
Pepper.
So we have Gene Okerlund meeting with Steve McMichael, Kevin Green, and the wives. They were yelling stuff and they're just getting hyped up for the match. Football metaphors. They're all getting psyched, trying to build a pregame environment. We do have the next match here. Decent match. Chris Benoit defeating Kevin Sullivan with Jimmy Hart. Falls count anywhere. Match goes 10 minutes long, pretty quick. Some good action here. Benoit, the wrestler himself, guys goes out there and puts on a show every time he's out there. Sacrifices his body. Super, super stiff stuff. Both guys, you could tell there was a general disdain for each other, whether it was worked and then eventually they worked themselves into a shoe where they actually didn't like each other. They didn't pull any punches. I mean, like we talked about Regal and Finlay a couple weeks ago. Benoit and Sullivan go out there and they were absolutely destroying each other. Some really good stuff here. The ending saw the superplex to the mat. They changed the angle of the superplex to make it look more impactful. Just if you guys were watching, the visual was weird. I've never seen that camera angle. After the match, Benoit continues his assault until Arn Anderson runs down and pulls him off Sullivan. So they continue to attack Sullivan, and then the Dungeon of Doom chase the Horsemen off. So we are definitely getting some good stuff from Benoit and the Horsemen here. So this was, quality match. I was a big fan of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I'm the least person to claim I'm a Kevin Sullivan fan, but this was good. I enjoyed this a lot. Benoit and Sullivan really had heat. I feel like this is kind of, one of those things that was mentioned on Dark Side of the Ring. They're working each other, they're hitting each other hard. Fouls up with everything that we've kind of heard. Just with the whole story of it, it's crazy how much hatred these guys had for each other. But they went out there and put out a fucking banger match.
They also had, they started the match all over the arena, and this becomes commonplace throughout the 90s, but it's not so common here in 1996. They start out in the bathroom too, so some bathroom spots. We get used to that, like in the Attitude Era, we become desensitized to it. But at the time, this was a big deal. So a really, really good match, very, very stiff, and like you said, for what they were trying to do, they got it over pretty quickly and a lot of action in 10 minutes. So I do recommend checking out this match.
Way better than Public Enemy.
That is for sure. So before we move to the next match, we have Gene Okerlund with Woman and Elizabeth. They hype up the match later, talk about Randy Savage. So yeah, just continue to hype up the match. You want to take on Steven Regal versus Sting in the next match?
Yeah, man. This is a dream match in anybody's concern. The match goes 16 minutes, 29 seconds. They beat the living piss out of each other, as you would expect. Sting's got his typical headlocks, arm drags. Regal's fucking awesome as always. I love watching Regal work, especially in such a high caliber match like this. Like you really get to see both men shine at their best here. And listen, it's not the greatest match of all time, but I really, really enjoyed it. He gets the slapping, and Sting goes for the Stinger Splash, sets up the Scorpion Deathlock. You get the good tap. Sting's your winner. Beautiful shit. Great stuff. I don't think we've seen a bad William Regal match this entire run. And same thing with Sting, man. Like these two are just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't help but thinking as I watch Regal through this run, especially he has this like shitty gimmick here, but he's a missed opportunity. He hangs with every main eventer he's in there. His offense looks legitimate, and I think in a different time, in a different era, he could have been the guy. And I think
Yeah,
it's a missed opportunity for WCW and for WWE eventually when he goes there.
I think a lot of people got over because Regal was the guy putting over the
Yeah.
guy. And this is no exception. I think Sting looked probably the best I think if we've seen Sting look in a long time too. Like he gets a lot of offense and a lot of good shit. Regal is just William Regal. British brute, gonna fucking love.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, which was very weird, and it just speaks to the crowd and the type of wrestling they expect or what they want. They weren't really popping for the things I was popping. I'm on my couch watching this match, and I'm like reacting completely different than a lot of the guys that the people in the crowd were, and it was weird because I took a moment for a second to be like, wow, my expectation, what I want from the product is completely different from what they started to expect and want. So you can't blame them for moving towards guys that have maybe not so focused on work rate. They're more of the showmanship, just the star power, quick matches. But man, this match in any era, any time, this rules. And this is why I like pro wrestling. You talk about the Mysterio Malenko match. This was very good too.
I would love to see AEW run this back with Jeeves and everything. Is Jeeves still around?
I don't know.
We'll hope Jeeves is still around. We'll just in wishful thinking we want Jeeves still here. Throw me this on a random rampage. I'd love
or just have Darby versus Wheeler. And then you have
I would
Jeeves
love that too.
Yeah. Or Jeeves' son. Does Jeeves have a son?
Yeah.
What is the identity of Jeeves
Jr.?
Can we get the identity of Jeeves, please? Can we get Jeeves on the pot? I need to talk to Jeeves, please, for shot nostalgia. Tell me about your time with Lord Steven Regal. All right. Next match here, we have Ric Flair and Arn Anderson with Bobby Heenan, Elizabeth, and Woman, the entourage, if you will, defeating Steve McMichael and Kevin Green. Mongo and Green came out to music, which was custom made for them. Absolutely horrendous. Bobby's not managing. He's merely coaching Flair and Anderson here. Heenan was just hanging out here with the Horsemen. Very cool, dynamic. This match goes pretty much a little bit too long for my liking, 20 minutes and 50 seconds. The ending saw Green reversing a figure 4 over the ropes. Calls out the Mongo, replies with a halberd to the back of the head. Flair covers for a 1-2-3. After the match, Savage lunges on Flair and gets pulled off him by Mongo. We now have 4th Horseman as Mongo puts on the t-shirt. This is when Mongo joins the Horsemen. There was some talk on the Extra Cooler show, as I mentioned, from when they did Bash at the Beach 1997, which was a whole year later, about Mongo being, quote unquote, the worst Horseman member of all time. What was your opinion on when Mongo was in the Horsemen? Because you were right in the meat of you being a fan here.
Yeah, I didn't really pay that much attention to notice how bad he was in the ring. I just thought Chicago Bear, fucking legitimate. I thought it was a big deal. Retrospectively, especially rewatching some of his matches, absolutely just horrid. And I hate talking bad about the man because he's not doing well right now. But
he's battling
probably
ALS right now.
Yeah, probably one of the worst transitional wrestling careers I've ever seen. But it made for good entertainment. I mean, we got Botchamania clips out of it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it serves its purpose, right?
Yeah, I mentioned this match went too long, but it was a decent match, and most of it was carried by the fact that Ric Flair and Arn Anderson were great. You know what I mean? Like the two of them were able to get a match out of a broom at this point. And Steve McMichael and Kevin Green essentially were brooms as far as wrestling ability goes. But some people point to this and say this is probably Mongo's best match in WCW. Who knows? The bar is pretty low as far as that goes. And again, not disparaging the guy, just looking at his career objectively. For me,
I'll agree with it just because it sounds
better. For me, watching this, it just doesn't resonate the way it probably did at the time, because they're both professional athletes that had just. Kevin Green is a current NFL player, just signed the deal with the Carolina Panthers, and Steve McMichael was just recently retired from the Bears. So I'm trying to
still
put
relevant.
2 NFL players in there. Like, I don't know. There's got to be a current NFL player and a retired NFL player that would probably resonate to have them wrestle on AEW. Maybe it would create some dynamic of interest, but I don't know. It doesn't age as well, because Kevin Green, to me, NFL stars are so fleeting. Once they're gone, they're gone.
No, and listen, it's a rough sport, much like pro wrestling is. But like you just said, once they're gone, we're gone. And on a side note, I do have good news for you. So on Tony Schiavone's "What Happened When" podcast, the former WCW play-by-play man talked about Uncensored 1996, which we've covered not too long ago. The pay-per-view in depth. Aside from giving thoughts on the infamous Doomsday Cage main event, Schiavone revealed that the guy accompanying Steven Regal to the ring that evening had another role in the company. According to Tony, Jeeves was the same guy who danced around as Wildcat Willie, WCW's mascot. Jeeves was a replacement for Sir William, played by Bill Dundee, and ended up enjoying a lengthy run in the role, and he went on to play Wildcat Willie exclusively afterwards. So no name, but that's he was Wildcat Willie as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So
Jeeves, if you're listening, if you're typing in, you're sipping on some wine here late at night, and you're like typing in WCW 1996, and you type in, you want to know what's going on, and you're like, oh, I was there at Great American Bash 1996, and you have
the guy googling his name. Where is Wildcat Willie now?
At ACEFIELD Retro, message me. My DMs are always open. I want to have you on the show. I do.
Yeah, we want you here open. Like, let's do it. Come on.
We have a visit to the tavern with Jeeves.
Yeah, it would be Wildcat.
All right, so before we move to the main event, we have probably the highlight of the show as far as segments go. Eric Bischoff brings out the interruption, as we know now, with Scott Hall. He asks Hall and Nash straight up whether or not they work for the WWF. They both quickly answer no and demand to know who their 3 opponents are for the Bash of the Beach on July 7th. When Bischoff refuses to tell them who their opponents will be, Hall jabs Bischoff in the gut to set up for a powerbomb from Nash on the stage through a table. These boys mean business. This huge moment in WCW history that turned the NWO angle up a notch had to pretty sweet for the ECW fanboys who hated Bischoff at the time.
Yeah.
They noted that in the newsletter that a lot of people Bischoff had a lot of heat, a lot of go away heat for people that were not a fan of the product.
Yeah.
Man, this became real. Bischoff, similar to when Vince entered the fray, when Brett pushed him down in the cage, and then when eventually he entered getting stunned by Austin at MSG, there was a lot to be said about when a leadership figure who's not typically a wrestler takes a move. And at this point, it wasn't happening very frequently. So it had a lot of effect.
Yeah. This is a very infamous powerbomb too. I mean, this is anytime they show the NWO stuff from WCW, this is included in that clip. Very interesting to see Bischoff brought into it. I know at first he plays off, oh, I'm the announcer. Well, much like Vince did. And then he transitions into, oh, I own this bitch, I'm on a boat, motherfucker.
Like, motorcycle on, just, come on.
Yeah. But I mean, this is that first kind of blend of kayfabe. This is, you're starting to see shit kind of leak out a little bit more. We're getting like the whole picture fills out eventually, but I mean, this is just little seeds, baby.
Cheese.
I think, yeah, a little cheese for the rats, man.
All right, so we have our main event here. Take the lead here. We got the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on the line. Giant defeating Lex Luger. So tell me about this match and what went on here.
So let me just go back to little Belcaster vision. I remember watching this. I was so like, come on, Lex Luger's got to win the belt, man. It's so hard to do it in like that torture rack. I was so fucking impressed by Lex Luger putting the Giant in a torture rack at this time. I was like, what? Mind blown. My whole existence just got shooken. Like, I don't know what's going. He could pick him up. I didn't know this was possible. It's just like I would say it's just as big as Hogan body slamming Andre, because you're like, wow. As a kid. In retrospect, listen, Giant defeats Luger, choke slam, good shit. I don't know, man. I always thought Luger was worthy. I mean, I always thought he was good enough. I think this obviously this wasn't the best time to take it off, but I believed it could have happened. This is way better than Scott Norton. I'll fucking sell that to them.
I would say so,
there.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, Jimmy Hart, like in retrospect, the Jimmy Hart thing's way too much. it's like that really bright light at the end of a hangover. You're like, oh fuck, like come on.
Right.
Yes, but I mean, yeah, I think for what it wasn't terrible, but it was not the greatest main event. Especially, how the fuck do you follow Rey Mysterio and Dean Malenko? It's just, yeah, it's hard shit to do. But I mean, we want 9 minutes 36 seconds shows you how much they thought into this match. So it's crazy.
So the end of this match, many people at the time, if you read some notes of the newsletter, they have some letters in there. People were convinced that Luger was going to be the surprise third man. Hall and Nash were going to be costing Giant the title, giving Luger the title. They would have the WCW championship in their camp going into it because Luger, being an ex-WWF guy, kind of fit. Swerve on them. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, Lex Luger, they did the job. It was serviceable, as you mentioned. It wasn't the best match on the card, clearly, but when you're working against Sting and Regal, Sullivan and Benoit having that banger of a hardcore match, and then also on top of it, Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko, it was never going to be the best match. But the fact they went 9 minutes and 36 seconds, yeah, not a bad match. Giant gets another convincing win here. It was good.
It felt like a Nitro match.
It did.
It didn't feel like a main event for the Great American Bash. Lex didn't even come out in his red, white, and blues. I mean,
weird, right?
What are you doing?
Grow want a cease and desist letter from Titan, man.
You put that flag in a different direction. You say, "This is how we celebrate America." Vince McMahon loves that shit. Goddamn hell.
So I agree with you. I mean, most of the title matches that have happened throughout these pay-per-views we watch have felt big. Go back to Flair versus Macho in the cage. Even the Giants' last defense all felt big. It felt like it was something you were watching, like an event, but I don't know, maybe overshadowed by the Nash and Hall thing. This felt secondary.
Yeah.
Feels like we're building towards something bigger. And throughout 1996, for better or for worse, NWO continues to overshadow the WCW world title picture, and until they eventually get involved in it, which we will see.
You did feel like it needed to be a bigger match, though. Like it's one of those things where like you expect somebody to come into the company and it never happens, and you're just like, oh, like you get defeated afterwards. Like you expect a good match out of Lex Luger and the Giant. They probably could have did a way better job and put a little more time into it. I think 10-minute main event is fucking bullshit.
True. We're used to 38-minute bangers from AEW now. So
yeah, no, we got the 60-minute time limit draw. Yeah, well, I'm all here for it, man.
So in my opinion, man, final thoughts on it. This was a huge show for WCW. This is the first time you actually felt some momentum being the better show. It wasn't just campy and cartoony. Clearly they introduced the Rey Mysterio, who, in my opinion, was so important, doesn't get his due for being a huge part of the hotness that would be the WCW product over the course of 1996.
Yeah. Very true.
Of course, Hall and Nash made their statement, which really created a buzz for the New World Order angle that led up to be, Bash at the Beach, Hogan turning heel, and NWO became a huge angle, and WCW became the biggest and most profitable wrestling company in the world for a short period of time. 83 weeks is a long time. They were crushing it. Benoit was involved in a star-making match, I guess you could say, because he got the big W over Kevin Sullivan. Looked like $100,000, $1,000, $1,000,000, whatever you want to say. And everybody else seemed motivated to have good matches. This is clearly not a perfect card, in my opinion, but this was well booked, contained everything you want in a good pay-per-view. To me, best pay-per-view by far that we've seen so far. Yeah, I was a huge fan of it. You can go back to there's 4 or 5 matches that were surprisingly very, very good. I mean, aside from the Malenko and Rey Mysterio match, you expected to be good. Everything else you kind of had reservations about. Even go back to DDP versus Bagwell, not a terrible match. And everything was sort of strategic. There wasn't any questionable booking decisions. Nothing happened that seemed weird. Maybe you can go back in time and book Mysterio to win the championship because it's his debut, but who cares? That's nitpicking at this point. That was a quality card.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think the heat from Benoit and Sullivan added to how good of a match it was. And I think it was one of those things that, that's why the main event lacks so much. I mean, you got 3 great matches on a pretty long pay-per-view. You got to have a better banger of a main event.
True that.
Can't throw sexy Lexi out there like that.
So let's move into the chaser. The lights are coming on in the bar. We got to get out of here soon. So we're going to pick our favorite part of the 2 nights of wrestling we have to pick from. All right, here we are with the chaser. Every week, as I mentioned, we will pick our favorite part of the 2 nights of wrestling. We obviously had the Nitro from June 10th, also June 16th, Great American Bash 1996, Mike Belcaster. I'll let you start. Pick your favorite moment or match from the 2 nights.
All right, well, I'm gonna give Nitro a little love as well, because it wasn't the best Nitro, but I mean, we did have that iconic moment of Kevin Nash showing up, so that's my love for Nitro. Pay-per-view, I mean, Great American Bash 1996, man. How can you not put over the debut of Rey Mysterio against Dean Malenko? I think it's just it really defined what separated WCW from WWF. I really think it did. I think that cruiserweight division fucking ramped up so hard. And it's just, I mean, you got 2 of the best that were ever to grace our lifetime. Rey Mysterio, baby Rey Mysterio Jr., by the way. He wasn't even Rey Mysterio. He was still a little baby Rey.
Either. We got the eye, man. We got the eye.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. But I mean, Dean Malenko, again, I will say he's probably one of the most underrated, not only minds for the business, but one of the greatest to ever step in that ring. He's fucking so good. And I can't wait to see more of it. I mean, this is just the beginning of a very, very long, awesome breed of cruiserweight talent that came through. And this makes you know why it was so stood out. Probably one of the best of both of their careers. Fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I echo your sentiments. I have the exact same picks. I'll just add on top of it, power bombing Bischoff through the table was a huge moment.
That too, yeah.
So, that was, I guess you can pair that with Nash's debut. It really emphasized that they're putting all their weight behind this NWO angle, and justifiably so. We look at debuts of other guys in other companies at different times. Very rarely have anybody else debuting from a different company been giving the keys to the kingdom to just carte blanche, do the things you want to do, and give them power and make them feel bigger than the whole roster. But it definitely benefited Bischoff to do that. And he admitted maybe the WWF had more momentum. They had more star power, that they needed them to come in this interpromotional warfare, created buzz like no other.
Yeah. And I mean, for pay-per-views, it's like, I think I'll echo your statement. This is probably one of the better pay-per-views of the year so far. And I think that we're leading up to so much that it just keeps getting better and better. I loved how they just ragdolled Bischoff into the fucking stage, and like, it looks so good. And going back to my 1996 self, I remember being hooked on the edge of my seat, even for the Lex Luger and Giant match. It wasn't the greatest match, but I was bar none down for Lex Luger to win. Thought it was going to happen. I thought they had great chemistry. Overall, this was just a great week for WCW.
So fantastic. And I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch. And we've been waiting for these moments to unfold, because 1996 is heralded as one of the greatest years in WCW history, just as 1997 is with WWF. And we're finally seeing the fruit of watching all this and being patient. And there's something to be said about watching it grow organically and watching in real time, because you can watch snippets and moments, but watching these moments in real time through the context of seeing it happen with an understanding of the storylines, not just seeing Bischoff get powerbombed, seeing how much it truly shook the landscape. I mean, I would recommend everybody do this journey. It's so much fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you got a year to relive something from your childhood or your teenage years, would you not take advantage of it? I think this is the perfect way to do it. And I'm loving every minute of it, man. You're really seeing some growth from characters. You're seeing some backlash from things. You're seeing some pullaways. You're seeing a lot of throw out there. You're seeing DDP get left in the fucking dust after winning that shit fucking pay-per-view stipulation.
Yeah. So we got to close the tab, man. We got about 12 minutes left here. We're going to close the tab, hype up some tavern things, do some, good housekeeping. We're going to talk everything we need to talk. as our final wrap up, as we close the tab, let me just remind you guys, next week's show will be on July 22nd, and we will be talking about the June 17th, 1996 Nitro, followed up by the June 24th Nitro. This is our go-home show our go-home show specifically for our biggest show in Shot of Nostalgia history, which will be episode 15th, airing July 29th, 2022. We're going to be talking about the July 1st, 1996 Nitro. And of course, Bash at the Beach right now, confirmed guest, Matt from Extra Cooler. He's going to bring his whole cooler to take shots of nostalgia with us. Man, really exciting. We don't know who else is joining us, but open invite for the tavern folk. If you guys want to watch that event and hop in, the more the merrier. We'll take 60, 70. Come on down and enjoy Shot of Nostalgia with us.
Hell yeah. I know. I'm super, super excited. Everything's going to be just so good. Next week's episode is going to be fun. We get a lot of drama leading into Bash at the Beach. I'm so fucking here for it. I love it, man. And the Bash at the Beach is just going to be exactly what it is. It's going to be a Bash at the Beach, man. I'm going to put sand on my floor. I'm going to be wearing my flip-flops. I might even get a fucking umbrella to slap on the back of this chair. I'm very excited for it.
So, guys, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you to go to theturnbuckletavern.com and support us in any way you can. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. You see the rest of them. But buy a shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah.
We got an awesome Pro Wrestling Tees store. If you want to buy specific to Shot of Nostalgia, that purple shirt pops. I have it on in my closet right now. I wear it from time to time. It's a beautiful shirt. The Tavern Daddy shirt. Support the Tavern in any way you can. But maybe Pro Wrestling Tees is not for you. Going to Teespring is your answer right here. We got some other shirts, the Unlimited, it's one of those things like if you know, and you go to the Teespring store and you get some stuff that's not really able to be on ProWrestlingTees.com. So go there, buy a shirt, support us in any way you can. Mike Belcaster, we have a little bit of time left. Give me what's going on year end for the rest of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not checked out Fake Night and you are a fan of audio podcast listening, please check out the Turnbuckle Tavern Sessions with me and good old Tom Montelto, where we put out a podcast from Fake Night. When we put it to audio, we got the one and only figure godfather, the Fig Father, Jeremy Padower of Jack's Pacific Jazzwares, Wicked Cool Toys. Dude runs Pokemon. Dude runs Fortnite, Halo, Roblox, Squishmallows. He's a king in the collectible world. I mean, go check it out. It is just almost an hour and a half of audio goodness. I don't know what else more you could say. Check out the Debate Monday. Check out the turnbuckletavern.com. Just check us out. Show us some love. Give us a like, a subscribe. Put that little bell. Ring that bell. Be a timekeeper yourself and ring the bell. It feels good. I'll tell you. And
guys, stay tuned here. Stay with the Tavern. Following this right now, 8 minutes from now, we're going to have the first episode of Before Our Time. Nick Storm, the Australian icon, and young Anthony are going to be reviewing WrestleMania 1, talking about all the ramifications. There's a lot to be said about what they're going to talk about. And the biggest draw for me is hearing from their eyes, their perspective, reliving a time. I mean, 1985 was a long time ago. They were born long after that. I'm curious to see their takeaway comparing it to modern day wrestling. It's going to be very, very similar to what we're doing, but in a different sense. I mean, they even have a different perspective. You and I are a little bit older than the both of them, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, just a little bit.
Maybe about a couple months or so. Exactly. No, I mean, listen, these guys, they're not even 90s children. There's exclusively millennials. They're rocking that shit. So I mean, go check it out. I'm super excited. I know Nick Storm is fucking awesome, and I know young Anthony is so awesome. So I am so excited to watch this. You don't want to miss out.
And these dudes, just know they do their research. So when they say they're going to do something, they do it well. This has been a long time building, and the timing is appropriately right because they want to be able to match up the WrestleMania to the one that's coming up as well. So they're going to be doing this journey for quite some time. We have a lot of WrestleManias to get through. I think what WrestleMania are we up to this year? 39, right? That's where we're up to.
52, something like that. I don't fucking know.
So they're going to go through all the WrestleManias and talk about them. They're going to have all different special segments. Dude, stay tuned. You do not know what you're missing. Grab 100%. You have 6 minutes. Grab some popcorn, grab a drink, whatever you need to do. Go to the bathroom. Stay with the Turnbuckle Tavern. Nick Storm and young Anthony will not disappoint.
Yes, and if you are heading to bed, Nick Storm has the perfect, beautiful accent to kind of trail you off and let you fall right asleep. You're right here at the Turnbuckle Tavern. So, yeah, man. But sleeping's not what you're going to do. You're going to be so excited about hearing about WrestleMania 1. So, I got nothing else to add to that.
Hell yeah, man. But you know what? We got to go, dude. We're out of time. Tony Schiavone's in my ear. They're all telling me we got to go. It's been a blast. We'll see you next week. Tip your goddamn bartenders. Have a good weekend. We'll see you. Shot Nostalgia, Turnbuckle Tavern, Mike Belcaster and the Ace. We're out.